Tonight on Tabletop Commander, Zada, Hedron Grinder. Hi everyone, and welcome to my latest EDH deck tech, another fantastic video. This deck is a budget Zada deck. And when I say budget, I mean this is as cheap as you can get. This deck is about, as it stands, is about $40 or $45. You can easily even make it even cheaper by leaving out the Goblin Lords that are in this deck. And you can make it even cheaper if you don't even use goblins at all. You could probably get this deck down to about 20 bucks, and it still have it be decent. I went and used goblins in this deck because goblins just have a great synergy, and it just makes things a lot easier in the long run. But goblins are by no means required. Basically, this deck needs cheap 1 and 2 and maybe 3 cost creatures, anything that'll generate quick tokens, anything of that nature. And then Zada with combat tricks. That's basically the entire deck. This deck is super simple. It's great for first timers as it's really cheap, really simple, and it gets in there. It's actually a decent deck. Usually a budget deck is usually crap and not very good, just loses a lot. But this deck is actually pretty good. You can surprise a lot of people with this deck. I wouldn't say this deck is competitive, but if you brought it to something competitive, they'd probably look at you like, Zada, really? We're going to ignore you and focus on the other opponents, and then you can real quick jump in there, get some big damage in, and actually win the thing. So I wouldn't call it competitive, but you know, you never know. EDH does get interesting. All right, so as usual, I'm gonna get right into this. Leave out my mana base as I usually do. This mana base is literally just mountains. I did have a dormant volcano in here at one point, but I found it to be too slow. When I drew it, I was like, goddamn dormant volcano. So that came out and another mountain went in, so I just play mountains. Alright, so Zada, basically, it's just a creature that copies instants and sorceries that target him that you cast. So you want to use a lot of combat tricks. Putting a combat trick on him puts it on all of your creatures. So I play a lot of combat tricks. This is a combat trick based deck. So let's get right into it. Okay, first the obligatory Soul Ring. Gotta have Soul Ring. And I play a Ruby Medallion. That's the end of both my enchantments and my artifacts. Like I said, super simple deck. Gotta have a Lightning Bolt, super cheap. If you want to go even cheaper than this, guys, this is about $2 or $3. But if you want to go even cheaper, put a Shock in there. It's 1 damage less, but it is cheaper and it'll bring the cost of the deck down even more. Battle him for some mana, as well as Brightstone Ritual, also a mana generating card. And then I'm moving into combat tricks that are actually sucky combat tricks, but have this little draw a card written on them, or draw a card at beginning of next turn's upkeep. This is target creature attacks this turn if able. Usually you put this on your opponent's creature and force him to attack, and you have a big blocker set up for him. But not in this case. You're going to hit Zada with this, copy it to all your creatures, and then draw a card for each creature you have. And that's why I play Boiling Blood, as well as Crimson Wisps. That also gives haste, so it is slightly useful. Panic has the draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep, so you will draw cards on your next opponent's upkeep. Also Stun. Chaotic Strike is another one that can actually be used as a combat trick and card draw, but it's really better for card draw. Another draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep, as well as it is a good copyable combat trick. Expedite, haste, and drawing a card. Alitor, I don't know what that is. Okay. Again, has the next turn's upkeep. and that is the end of my card draw cards in instant. Basically, those are really there for the card draw ability. It turns drawing 1 card into drawing 6 or 7 or whatever, and really gets you cards really fast. Now we move into some instants that are actual combat tricks. You always, for this one, Invigorated Rampage, you always want to pick the target creature that gets +4/+0 and gains trample. This will copy it to all of your creatures when on Zada, so you don't want to do the 2 creatures. That's pretty pointless in this deck. Timur Battle Rage gives all your creatures double strike, and if their power is 4 or greater, which usually is with a second combat trick on them, also gains trample. Brute Force, basically giant growth button red, fantastic card. Titan Strength, big combat damage. Brute Strength, big combat damage. Rush of Adrenaline, again. Otherworldly Outburst, this is going to be great for a game that you swing once, but you can only kill 1 opponent, and you're going to need to swing again because whatever creatures die gives you a 3/2 Eldrazi Horror token, which will keep your army up during combat. Downhill Charge, great card because you don't have to pay the mana cost. You just sack a mountain instead, and it gives you +X/+0, which is X is how many mountains you have. So definite big damage, usually a 3 or a 4 at the very least. Enrage, same thing, big damage. Uncaged Fury, +1/+1 and double strike to all your creatures. Alright, moving into sorceries. You want to play any sorcery that will make token creatures. We go for goblins in this deck, but you don't have to go for goblins. So if you know one that makes something other than goblins, pretty cheap, go ahead and use it. By all means, there's cards that make devils, I know, so you can go ahead and use those. Those are a little expensive because the devils do more than just be 1/1 creatures. But go with whatever your budget is, you know. We've got Krenko's Command, Hordling Outburst, Dragon Fodder, and Empty the Warrens. I would definitely play these cards. These cards are really cheap, and Empty the Warrens has Storm, so... As well as Mog Alarm and Goblin Rally. Goblin Rally is a little expensive. It's a 5 cost, but does put 4 Goblin tokens out. So definitely play those. Even if you're not playing Goblins, those are great cards. They don't cost a lot. They're bulk commons and non-commons, so you can probably just go up to your friend and be like, "Hey, do you need this card?" And they'll be like, "No, dude. Just if you need it, just take it." And you can build half this deck on, dude. Just take this card, and there you go. Twin Flame. You never have to pay the Strive on this. You just target Zada and can copy all your stuff. Same with Heat Shimmer. And then I have a sorcery that draws a card. I have Renegade Tactics. Target creature can't block this turn. Well, you're just going to play it on Zada on your turn. So that first part doesn't even matter. What matters is the drawing of the card. An Assault Strobe. All target creature gets double strike. Again, Zada. All your creatures get double strike. Reckless Charge. Oh my god, I love this card. I love this card. It has flashback. So you hit Zada with it once. You could swing, and then you can hit him with it again later. So, fantastic card. Moving into creatures, I have some of my non-goblin creatures first. I have a Mana Dork, Iron Mirror. Can also attack, though, if you Zada him up. Plague Mirror. Another Mana Dork, but has Infect. That's another possible win condition right there. The 1 Infect creature. How bad would it be if they had to lose to the 1 Infect creature you have? Avaricious Dragon. I play him just for the extra card draw. I did play him yesterday. I was in quite a bind. I was not drawing any combat tricks. I had a load of goblins on the field and no combat tricks. So I had to play him to hold off my opponent and get me that extra card long enough to actually win the game, and I actually did win the game in the end. Combat Celebrant, have not gotten to play this guy yet, but extra combat phases. Also a good card for this deck if you want to if you want to pay for it. It's like $1 or $2. Relentless Assault. It's a sorcery, 4 cost, gives you the extra combat phase. Young Pyromancer. Good for putting creatures into play when you cast your instants and sorceries. Pianalar makes extra token creatures, so I play her. Stormblood Berserker. This is an example of a good creature card if you're not going goblins. It's I pretty much just had it laying around. It's a bulk uncommon, so it's a 1/1 Bloodthirst 2. So if the other person took combat damage this turn, it's a 3/3 for 2 mana. And not only that, but it has Menace, so that's a fantastic add to this deck. But if I get another good goblin, or actually I'm probably going to replace him with Metallic Mimic. It's like a $6 card right now, that's why it's not in the deck just yet. But if you want to go ahead and spend the extra money, or you have one, even better. I don't for some reason. I drafted the hell out of Kaladesh and I don't have one. I don't know how that happened. But it is an amazing tribal card and an amazing card in this deck. It's 2 mana. You name goblins, and then every time you play a goblin, it gets a 1/1 counter. The goblin does. So it's an amazing card on this deck. So I'm probably going to replace that card with Metallic Mimic. Go right into Treasonous Ogre. I was not going to include this card. Foolish me. I played it one time, and it just generates a ton of mana. You just pay your entire life total into this guy and get loads of mana and drop a horde and a bunch of combat tricks all in one turn and swing for the fences and win the game. It definitely wins games. Moving into goblins, I have some goblin lords first. You definitely want to not include these guys if you're going super duper budget. You can definitely get the cost of this deck down to about $20 if you don't include these guys. They're not required. I have them in here just for a little extra pizzazz. They're kind of high cost. If you replace them with some 1s and 2s, the deck might actually run just as well, if not faster. So I play Goblin King, Goblin Chieftain, Goblin War Chief, and Krenko Mob Boss. I have an actual Krenko deck, which I have not featured on this yet, on this YouTube channel yet, but I will be very shortly. He just makes more tokens. Then I have Beetleback Chief because he makes more tokens. Mog War Marshal. This guy has Echo, but puts a token into play whenever he enters or leaves combat. So you just want to put him in, and then next turn let him die. And you get 2 tokens out of it. 2 tokens for 2 mana. Pretty good deal. Goblin Recruiter for fetching up more goblins. Goblin Ringleader for, again, fetching up more goblins. Goblin Matron fetches up a specific goblin. I don't have a real favorite for grabbing with her. Goblin Lord is good. You know, grabbing Krenko if you have the mana to put him on the field. Or you can just go for the next guy right here, Goblin Pile Driver. Gets nice big fat bonuses when attacked with other goblins. Mog Flunkies, 2 mana for a 3/3, but it can't attack or block alone. But that's never going to happen. If you're attacking with trying to attack with Mog Flunkies by themselves, you have a real problem, and you got a real problem if you're just trying to attack that one dude. This is a swarm deck, and you need to swarm. If you're attacking without the swarm, either the 3 damage is not going to matter if they have nothing, or you're just in a heap of trouble. Reckless One usually is very large and has haste. Goblin Churgeon. I have all 3 artworks with this guy, and the amputated leg is the one I chose for this one. Mog Fanatic. Get your opponent down to 1, no problem. He's dead anyway. Goblin War Diver. Got this guy out yesterday. He swung for like 16. It was awesome. Goblin Balloon Brigade. Yeah, I never thought I'd put Goblin Balloon Brigade in a deck either, but here he is. Possible flyer. Grenzo, good and cheap. Has a couple of abilities. Mostly just because he's cheap. Slowbad. He's in here just because he's a goblin. Skirk Prospector. I've actually used this a couple times in my Krenko deck. It's good if you have a lot of tokens and you need to get you really need to get some extra mana, that little extra bit of mana to get the combat trick going, or to get Krenko on the field, or something of that nature. Goblin Kaboomist, just because he's a goblin, and Gutter Snipe, because he's a goblin, and getting a couple extra damage in when you cast Engines and Sorceries is a pretty good deal, too. So that is my super budget Zada Hedron Grinder deck for a Brawler on a budget. So there we go. And don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff to my channel. Share with your friends, all that good stuff, and have a great day.